Well, let me welcome you to the Abuja Center with a clearer voice this morning, a beautiful Thursday morning. Not cold, but rather cool in Abuja. My name is Mwabo Zenjok, and our colleagues in Enugu have been hitting it since morning and just asking us to come join the feast. I hope you join us this morning in this feast of conversation on ideas, issues in the Nigerian polity. Now, remember that last week Friday, founder of ABGA, All Progressive Grand Alliance, Chekwas Okorie, was my guest. He was my guest as the convener of the Igbo Agenda Dialogue. In that conversation, I raised quite a number of concerns. A disunited Igbo nation, a people who seem to, everybody wants to be a leader. He having been a partisan before, level of trust that was necessary, and all these disparate interests, whether he will be able to turn the supertank around and achieve what he has set out to do with some of his colleagues. Just yesterday on Wednesday, the Igbo Agenda Dialogue took a first step. They got some eggheads together, some elders together, some leaders, select leaders together to think. At the end of that thought process, they came out with a position. I'm going to bring you two stories this morning. Before I tell you the issue for conversation this morning, let us take the first story from my producer.
At its inaugural meeting in Abuja, Dr. Chekwas Okorie, who is the convener of Igbo Agenda Dialogue, IAD, said a major political summit comes up in Enugu that will bring together political parties, market unions, professionals, women and youth groups, and the Igbo diaspora with one single purpose: to adopt an Igbo charter.
The meeting resolved to work towards convening a comprehensive Igbo political summit to be hosted in Enugu on a date to be agreed upon. The summit will be inclusive, cutting across political parties, market and professional associations, town unions, women and youth organizations, Igbo in the diaspora, and all critical stakeholders across the Southeast, and Igbo-speaking communities in Delta, Edo, Rivers, Bayelsa, Cross River, Akwa Ibom, Benue, Kogi states, and beyond.
Okorie said the Igbo nation will create an Igbo national grid, a coordinated structure designed to integrate all Igbo organizations, professional bodies, and diaspora networks.
The meeting resolved to build a formidable Igbo national grid, integrating all credible Igbo associations, unions, professional bodies, and diaspora groups into a coordinated structure for political mobilization, economic empowerment, and cultural renaissance.
Okorie stressed that after decades of playing on the sidelines and suffering disrespect and disadvantages, the time has come for Igbo to reclaim their rightful place in Nigeria.
It was unanimously resolved that the time has come for Igbo to redeem, reassert, and reclaim their rightful place in Nigeria's political and economic space through unity, resilience, and strategic engagement. Igbo leaders, irrespective of party, faith, or persuasion, must work together to guarantee the collective interest of the Igbo nation.
With the proposed summit and the adoption of the Igbo Charter, leaders say the Igbo nation is ready to move from decades of division to a future defined by unity, resilience, and strategic political engagement. In Abuja, I am Chimizi Zadima for Signature TV.
Well, the Igbo have chosen to take a position in Nigeria. That is the effort. Now, I have in the studio this morning a member of that dialogue think tank. Just to tell you that it wasn't something frivolous. There was an intelligentsia, a team, a thinking team that brought, crystallized all the things agreed on at Wednesday's meeting. And I have a member of that team. In the studio this morning, I have Professor Onyi Nwabara. Professor Onyi Nwabara is a member of that dialogue think tank. Prof, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Prof, I told you before we came on air that when I had a conversation with Okorie, what we did was to raise intra-Igbo concerns. But there are three words that were used by Okorie at yesterday's event, and I want to pick those words the way he used them. He said that the Igbo have been exposed to ridicule, disrespect, alienation, and marginalization. In your assessment of the Igbo situation in Nigerian polity, do you agree that indeed, since the end of the Civil War, that the Igbo have suffered these disadvantages?
As I said,
ridicule, disrespect, marginalization.
Thank you very much. Ridicule to a certain degree, yes, and I will explain. Right after the end of the Civil War, during the time of MPN, MPP, there was an alliance. MPN won at the national level. Then MPP formed an alliance.
Yeah, but it didn't win enough to form a government.
Government, right. But look at what happened during that Second Republic. The Igbos produced the vice president in the person of may so continue to rest in peace. Produced the speaker, House of Representatives, Dr. Edwin Umezoke, and by extension, the Senate President, Joseph Wires. Since after the end of that Second Republic, nothing else has happened, in that the Igbos overwhelmingly decide to vote for a particular party. In 2000, fast forward, in 2011, the Igbos gave President Jonathan 7 million votes. In 2015, for that number of votes, there was no recognition. The votes of the Igbos were taken for granted. That's where the issue of ridicule comes in. It was taken for granted. In 2015, from 7 million votes 4 years earlier to 2.5 million, it was a drop of almost 65%. To fast forward 2023, Peter Obi received about 3 million votes in the entire Southeast. So the issue of ridicule was made manifest starting from 2011. The Igbo votes were taken for granted. Now, in the issue of marginalization, you and I can agree that during the time of late President Muhammad Buhari administration, you look at the service chiefs, both the military and the paramilitary, how many Igbos were appointed? Very few, if none. So the issue of marginalization, let's not take it for granted, is something that every Nigerian, even those that are not Igbos, can attest to that. Say, look, these people, when it comes to political spread, if you go to any state in this country, after the indigenous people of that state, the second largest population of
Are
these
the-
are
are the
Igbos in all the 36 states, including the Federal Capital Territory, where you and I are this morning. So why should we be taken for granted? So it's the high time that the Igbos, home and abroad, put their feet down and say enough is enough. We are part of this federation. The Igbos are not asking for secession. It's for us to be part of this federation and make this country a nation instead of a country. We have to migrate from being a country to
Being
a
a nation.
We are not a nation yet. It takes a lot. It takes cohesiveness. It takes all-inclusive policies for us, for any country to transit from being a country to a nation. And that's the bane of the problem.
Now, if that is the challenge the Igbo are having, before the Civil War, the Igbo were reputed to be cohesive, united, and focused. But since after the Civil War, even in the votes they have given and not being respected for those votes, it's as a result of, if you get into every political party in this country, you see Igbo in abundance, and they vote against themselves. Doesn't it warrant the think tank re-examining? Because Okoye said to me, the Igbo are Republican. They make their decisions. They make their choices. Is it not splintering their own interests? It's not being singular and focused.
You know, Chief Chekwas Okorie said it all. The Igbos are republic in nature, and that's not going to change. And for you to be able to assimilate and adapt to all-inclusive society, you have to be republic. There's no two ways about it. Let's not stay here this morning and tell ourselves
that we are wrong to be Republican.
Absolutely not. I am proud that we are
the way we are.
We are as individuals, as a republic.
You make your own choice.
You make your own choice. We don't impose leadership or leaders on us, on ourselves rather. We choose, and each individual, each Igbo man or woman has that freedom to express himself, irrespective of where he or she is. So that is a very peculiar criterion for any Igbo person. So I don't take that one away from him. I don't see it as a negative description of Igbos. Absolutely not.
You know why it does that matter? This conversation, this dialogue is trying to create a united front. If you agree on a charter, if you agree on an Igbo charter, an Igbo political, most likely economic charter, or a charter that will be driven by politics, and some say, I won't go along this path with you, will it not vitiate, will it not diminish, will it not undermine your own efforts?
No, absolutely not.
Please.
We know that in any political system, and when someone is elected to a position, it's not 100%. You're going to have a descending voices. So that does not mean, but in what we are trying to do, if we can get 60 to 70%
Preponderance of position,
we're good to go. There's no two ways about it. So the most important thing is this: at the end of the day, let the interests of the Igbos be addressed, and also let them unequivocally contribute to their own quota to the building of this country. We have a country that is endowed in all aspects: human capital, natural resources. We have it. So why not we use our diversity to make us a great nation? That's only the thing that can make us.
Now, Prof, before we began, I said to you, part of the plank of the conversation this morning will be my own education.
That's correct.
And I wanted to be educated on the concrete outcomes of Wednesday's meeting, decisions reached. I've read, and in the story this morning, that another conference is billed for Enugu subsequently. I'm not going to get into that. What were the solid decisions taken at yesterday's meeting?
Okay. One of the decisions, one of the resolutions I reached yesterday was that Igbo agenda dialogue is not in opposition with Ohaneze and Igbo. Because people will say, oh, they met yesterday, they want to form a parallel. That's not true. Ohaneze and Igbo is still the apex socio-cultural organization of all Igbo worldwide. All Igbo in every state in this country and in diaspora. So we're not taking that out. What this dialogue is all about is for us to come up with political strength, political ideas, political unity that will make the Igbo people relevant in the Nigerian politics. That hasn't happened. If you listen, most times where you have conferences or summit, economic summit, security summit in the Southeast, Igbo nation, there has not been a single political summit, unlike other regions in the country. So what we are trying to do with this think tank, with this dialogue, with this agenda, is for us to take a step back, reassess where we have got it wrong, and try to build a formidable force politically in Nigeria. That is what this is all about.
Okay. You just said that other regions have done so. One of the challenges which many Igbo intellectuals and commentators put on the table is that there's so much suspicion of the Igbo in Nigeria. Even though they say that the second largest group in every state in this country, apart from the indigenous population. They always follow the indigenous population. But that spread has also created a sense of suspicion, a move towards takeover, a move towards domination. That word, domination, has been ringing for the Igbos since I knew politics under NCNC. So I knew the comments in the different houses of assembly when the regions were here. You are beginning this to create a common front, a common political front that will determine where you stand with your spread and your population. Are you not oiling that machine of suspicion again?
Absolutely not. For any individual to have such mindset, for any Nigerian that is not of the Igbo extraction to have that mindset, is not true. The reason being that there's a proverb that the Igbo say, I'm going to say it in Igbo.
Yes.
Asim go be corner watch. In other words, you make home wherever place you find yourself. if we're a republic in nature and we have this spread, if you go to the core north, I have privilege to live in Yola for 4 years. If you go around Yola town, Jamaica area, you will find out that most of the decent houses, with all due respect, are owned by the Igbos. They make home wherever they farm themselves. They don't just go and say, well, I'm going to throw my hand, take the resources from this one. And no, they reinvest. I don't see that as being dominant. You are helping, instead of using the dominance, I used another word, development. They try to develop where they find themselves. So I don't see anything wrong with that. Is it better that you live in a society, you live in a village, if you are sick, you cannot find a local pharmacy to get a drug or medication to take care of yourself? You have to travel
to the state capital.
To state capital. So the Igbos in most cases make this,
bring those things nearer to the people.
To the people. Is that dominance? Absolutely not. What we as black people, globally, irrespective of our ethnic background, is to work together as united front. That's only way we can be able to put our feet down and make that positive impact globally. But when we start to discriminate and start to marginalize within ourselves as a race, it's giving other races the weapon to defeat us on every front. And we have seen that play out numerous times.
Prof, yes. I want you to little bit expand this very point we're conversing on. I raised the matter of fear. The national conversation, even before the present government came into power, the present federal government came into power, was that there was so much of lack of cooperation within these various interests. And the solution to it, to create a united federal nation, is to restructure. In this conversation on Igbo agenda, Igbo common front, Igbo common purpose, bringing back respect to the Igbo, resolving the issue of marginalization, dealing with the insult of discrimination. Can the same thing not be achieved pursuing the broader Nigerian national restructuring? If you do this focus within an unrestructured Nigeria, are you not creating an ulcer that will not heal? You patch it, you put medication, it tends to go down, or because of the bigger, deeper federal challenge, it still resurfaces. Why don't you pursue restructuring?
Well, let's go back to the First Republic.
Yes.
Right after independence in 1960, we had 3 regions. Later on, it became 4 regions.
Yes, with Midwest.
Midwest. And each of the regions went to work in developing their regions. Look at in the north. That was when the Granite Pyramid was built.
Yes.
What Sir Amadi Bello, Tafawa Balewa did in the north. Most of the industries that have gone moribund
now
in the north were built by these 2 men during the First Republic. You come to the eastern region, there was an economic tsunami in terms of development. Michael Opera. Within 5 to 6 years, the eastern region of Nigeria
was in fact galloping.
Was the fastest growing economy in the world. The late Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore borrowed leaves from Dr. Emma Abara, went back to Singapore. Today, Singapore is the third.
It's a reference point for Nigeria.
For Nigeria, is the third or the fourth largest economy in the world. Just a small fishing community. To the south, to the western region, there was also developed the competition was there. But when we became states, we started to defragment. Now each state have to depend every month.
On central
handout. That competition is no longer there. So I believe that each region, and that's how it's done all over the world, develop at your own pace. But we have found ourselves in a situation where people, leaders, don't want to go and put on their thinking cap and develop their place. The inhibitor of development in Nigeria is bad leadership. There are a few governors now that you start to ask yourself, their previous colleagues, their predecessors, weren't they getting the same allocation? Let me give you a very good example. I'm not trying to pick. Go to Enugu and see what is happening in Enugu. Go to Abia. Go to places like Borno State. Go to Kano. It's all about leadership. So, and this leadership has to come when there is a federated entity where each individual state or geopolitical zone can go back and start to develop their place and just contribute just little to the center for security, currency circulation, so on and so forth. But bulk between 60 to 70% of the development now
should be happening at the federated unit point.
Absolutely. So when people say, "Oh, they are not against, they are against restructuring," I look at them and laugh. Restructuring doesn't mean that you are not going to be getting what you're supposed to, but go and develop your place at your own pace.
You know, Prof, why I ask this question is, if restructuring can give the Igbo what they want within the Nigerian Federation, why this agenda idea? And I want to push the conversation.
Sure.
Because you mentioned creation of states while we talked. It appears to me, I'm making a comment, it appears to me that Igbo unity was hurt by state creation. Will you agree with me?
No. I won't.
Okay, if you won't agree,
I need to differ with you on that.
You come to it.
Right.
If you don't agree with me, it appears that stateism is dissipating resources, creating conflicting leadership quests, creating a splintered allegiance. I'll give you an example. Imo State Governor is of APC.
Okay.
Enugu State Governor is of PDP. Anambra State Governor is of ABGA. Ebonyi State Governor is of APC. Ebonyi and Imo face APC wards. Mba of Enugu faces PDP ward. Oti of Abia faces Labour wards. Abga Soludo of Abia is facing Abga wards. In other words, their directions and interests and the how of their governance and their priorities are quite different.
Okay.
Can't you see your task? That's why I'm asking the question.
Let me put it this way. We borrowed this presidential system of government from the United States of America. Each state within the Union is more or less
quasi-independent.
Quasi-independent. Within the state, you have counties. In some states, parishes. The counties
belong to a different party.
Then within the county, you have cities that are also quasi-independent. So, but the bottom line is this: irrespective of political affiliation, they are all working for one goal: to build and develop the place. When you come to a place like the Southeast, there's an organization that I belong to, the Southeast Region Economic Development Company. When we came on board in 2017, we noticed that the Southeast Governors Forum was more or less non-existent, unlike other regions. We called them together. We said, you guys need to reactivate for the sake of the Igbos and unity. Then the Southeast Governors Forum was reactivated to become what it is right now. So, irrespective of political party, the issue of development unity should come first for your people and by extension for the country.
Prof, if that is feasible with all these states, between political priority and economic priority, which one should take precedence in this dialogue? Both. They go together.
That's correct.
Okay, they go together. And the past 32 minutes I've been conversing with Professor Onyi Nwabara. He's a member of the Igbo Dialogue,
Igbo Agenda Dialogue.
Igbo Agenda Dialogue.
Right.
We'll continue this conversation, but please, I want to take a short break and we'll be back.
Every second, every minute, every day, news is breaking, events occur, and there are
of the Igbo Agenda Dialogue, IAD, a new pan-Igbo political think tank held in Abuja on Wednesday. The dialogue resolved that Igbo votes can no longer be taken for granted. The group stated in a communique that any aspirant or political party seeking Igbo votes must sign a memorandum of understanding with Igbo, one that will be made public for transparency and accountability.
The dialogue emphasized that Igbo votes must never again be taken for granted. Any candidate or political party seeking Igbo support must enter into a binding Memorandum of Understanding (MOU) with the Igbo nation, and such agreement shall be made public through verified platforms.
Convener of the Igbo Agenda Dialogue, Chekwas Okorie, clarified that the Igbo Agenda Dialogue is neither a political party nor a partisan organization. He stressed that the Igbo group has not endorsed any party or individual for the 2027 elections, noting that no official candidates have even emerged yet.
Igbo Agenda Dialogue is a non-partisan organization, but its subject matter is political. So the issue of where we stand on the 2027 election with regard to who we will support is premature. The political parties have not even produced their candidates.
The dialogue also promised to revive political participation among Igbo through mass voter education, insisting that the permanent voters card remains the strongest weapon of empowerment, far more effective than violence or armed struggle.
The meeting observed the decline in voter turnout among Igbo in recent elections and resolved to reawaken political consciousness through mass mobilization and education. It was agreed that the permanent voters card is the strongest instrument of political empowerment for Igbo, far more effective than violence or armed struggle.
With these resolutions, the Igbo Agenda Dialogue says it is laying the foundation for unity and self-assertion ahead of 2027, vowing that the days of taking Igbo votes for granted is over. In Abuja, I am Chimize Zadima for SIG.
Prof, a charter. As I was listening to that story, I asked myself, the political parties will have their programs, the promises they are going to make. We will do this, we will do this, we will do that. And that is the social contract they have with Nigerian voter. They run their campaigns. And they meet the people and say, vote for us because we shall do this for you. In determining a charter, an Igbo political agenda charter, what will your team be considering? The think tank, those who are going to finally write this charter on our behalf. Because in my country, my community, we have already tarred our roads, we have provided our water. Or are you going to distill pan-Igbo needs that will rhyme or you present to the individual candidate to say, look, if you win, if you want to win, we'll get our people to vote for you, but how to do this? Suppose that conflicts with the promise the party wants to make. I'm just raising the matter. How are you going to resolve it?
Okay. What will we do? What we plan to do, irrespective of the party, irrespective of the candidate, what we are going to do is we have to sit down on a negotiating table, develop an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, because we can't sit and let our votes be taken for granted any longer. If you want, and at the same time, we are not saying that Igbos should also put their egg in one basket. So no, because our son, if the time comes, is the presidential candidate for that.
Everybody.
No, that's not the republic nature of Igbo person. Irrespective of the presidential candidate, irrespective of the party, we're going to sit down and say, these are the things that we need to be done for Igbo. We are not asking for the resources of the country to be given to Igbo. What we are asking and what we're going to ask is equal participation, equal involvement, equity and fairness in the political sphere of this nation, all inclusive, irrespective of a geopolitical zone, irrespective of our ethnicity. We will make sure that Igbos are no longer going to be at the back burner, that Igbos are not going to be, votes are not going to be taken for granted anymore. If we agree, we will mobilize our people, tell them that this candidate, this political party or political parties have agreed that they are going to do this or that, and at the same time hold the elected official accountable to the promises contained in Memorandum of Understanding. That's correct.
But this looks like the Igbo nation versus the federal government. It looks like the Igbo nation versus those aspiring to take responsibility for the administration of this country at the center. They say that politics is at the local level. Development also should drive from the local level.
That's true.
What will be the position of the governorship aspirants in this charter of equity?
That's why I said earlier, irrespective of the political party.
No, I mean the governors.
I'm coming.
Yeah, good.
The governors. The governors are also going to be accountable to the MOU. We are not saying, oh, all our focus is going to be at the national level. Absolutely not. It's going to come from the local government, also concentrate at the state level, also at the national level. So every elected official, every aspirant candidate that is asking for the Igbo's vote, irrespective of the position, must be held accountable to the MOU. Because the time has come when Igbo people should hold their leaders accountable, from the local government to the state level to the national level. And if we don't do that, we will not get it right until we decide to hold our leaders responsible, accountable, make them to deliver on the dividends of democracy
and the promises
they made. We're not going anywhere. We will continue to spin without making any move. And that's the truth. In other climes, when elected leaders don't do the right thing, next time around, they're out of the...
They lose their jobs.
Absolutely. So that issue of holding leaders accountable should be one of our primary focus come 2027.
Prof, I'm sorry. They say those who go to Equity should go with clean hands.
That's correct.
The Igbo want to put down a charter. They want to hold those who are asking for their votes to deliver on an agreement. Some of your sons may want to vie for the presidency. Do you also agree that your sons should be held to such MOU from other regions if they vie for power?
Absolutely.
In other words, this Igbo charter, you are not against any other part of the country having their own charter and also making your own sons to deliver on any agreements they reach?
You know, the thing is this. What we are saying is this. We want leaders, irrespective of their ethnicity, leaders that can move this country from being a country to being a nation. A leader or leaders that will deliver on the dividends of democracy. So we are not saying no because an Igbo man or woman is a presidential candidate. For that we are home and dry. Absolutely. Absolutely not. The same condition, the same demand that we are going to give to somebody, a presidential candidate from the north, from the southwest, from the north central,
from even the southeast,
from southeast, the same. All we are saying is this: Nigeria is a blessed country. Let's harness the resources and use it for the betterment of the citizens. You know, when Nigerian government go to borrow money, I'm not trying to digress.
No, I'm following you perfectly.
This is a country that has whatever thing it takes. We should be contributing money to World Bank
to uplift weaker nations.
Weaker nations.
We should bring something more to the global basket.
Yes. I tell people this, the younger ones. I remember growing up in the 70s when every member of the Saudi royal family come to Nigeria for their medicals in this country. So what happened? We dropped the ball. The leaders dropped the ball at some point. There was a time in this country that when anyone graduates from the university, you have 3 or 4 jobs opportunity. Instead of us moving forward,
we're regressing.
We're regressing. By the minute, we take 2 steps forward, we take
5 backward.
No, 100 backwards. And that's how we have found ourselves in the situation we are in right now. There is no country in the world. I mean, I'm an academic. There is no university in the United States you will not find a Nigerian professor. We are not deficient in human capital. We are endowed. So why can't we utilize what God has given to us? And for us to do that, the issue of leadership is the key.
Well, Prof, I'm looking at the time. I will not conclude this conversation without revisiting a particular issue which is of concern to me as a citizen, a very senior citizen at that. The failure of the subnationals to deliver seems to be at the center of the underdevelopment. Seems to me, you see, the politics of the center is cake sharing. The politics of the center carries some measure of elitism. The elites are quarreling. But the actual development that touches me, my grandchildren, who are in the village, that touches my uncle's widows in the village, that touches the primary school in my community, that challenge comes from the states and local governments. I raise it because as we were speaking, I was still worried by the import of the charter at that national level, at that sub-national level. And what the 2 stories that we used this morning, they seem to have a federal outlook. When this meeting is held subsequently, I understand it's going to hold in Enugu.
That's correct.
I don't know when. I would even want us to dwell a little more on that. Will that meeting aggregate from those who can raise the worries and inconveniences at the subnational level? Because that may be the meat of the matter. If we are preoccupied with globalism, the larger picture, without solving or addressing the nuclear ones, we might not cover much distance.
Okay, let me also use an Igbo proverb
again,
and I will explain. Asa nishino marama fuama. In other words, you have to put your house in order before you start talking about the outside. The charter, I believe, would create a policy that will make subnational development
a priority.
A priority. I can assure you that. And at the same time, the issue of voters' apathy is something that we have to address. Why do I have to say that? Currently, there is an INEC PVC registration going on as we speak, nationwide. It will surprise you to know that in the entire Southeast, voter registration have not registered up to 2,000 people. In Abia, it's about 700. In Enugu, about 450, 460. In Ebonyi, about 200 something. In Anambra, 0. So the entire South, 5 Southeastern states combined, less than 2,000 voters registration. So how are we going to make an impact? So the issue of creating awareness
Yes.
for our youth.
It's critical.
It's critical.
Very critical.
Unlike other parts of the country, our neighboring states, rivers, Delta has so far registered at about 26,000 as at last week Friday. But the entire southeast, Anambra State, 0. So the issue of voter apathy is there. It's going to be there. If you don't register, you can't vote. Your vote, your PVC card, is more powerful than AK-47. With your PVC card, that's when you would decide that
you can enthrone and dethrone.
And dethrone. So I'm making this appeal
Kindly.
for Igbos in the southeast, for them to participate in this current ongoing INEC voters registration. It's very, very key. It's very critical. If we want to get it together come 2027, we have to get our youths registered. There's no two ways about it.
Thank you, Prof. We'll be coming to the Enugu meeting.
It's going to be open invitation. The stakeholders, normally it's going to be Igbos from all parts of the world in diaspora. We have Igbos in Edo, we have Igbos in Kogi, we have Igbos in Bayelsa, we have Igbos in Rivers, we have Igbos in Akwa Ibom, we have Igbos in Cross River, we have Igbos in Benue. And it will interest you that 300-400 years ago, in Jigawa State, currently Jigawa State, Guzo.
Guzo is Zamfara.
Zamfara rather. Igbo community there, living in harmony with the people, about 300-400 years ago, still up to today. And that brings us back to our earlier discussion, the republic nature of the Igbo person. So come 2027, in preparation for 2027, we should speak
to the Nigerian politics with one voice.
With one voice.
From wherever you are.
I don't care whether an Igbo person happens to be the presidential candidate of all the political parties. We still have to make that demand. The demand that if you're elected, you have to move this country from being a country to being a nation. All inclusive. This country is blessed. All that is lacking is leadership. And we have to turn that around for us to be able to sit the same table with nations, other countries of this world and discuss.
Well, Professor Onyi Nwabara is a member of the Igbo Agenda Dialogue think tank. I don't think any person would have been better qualified for this conversation. But I also want to say, Prof, I sympathize with you. I feel for you, because you and your team have elected to turn around a long-grounded supertanker. I wish you good luck.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for having me.
Great. And that's the conversation for this morning. When the Igbo take a position in Nigeria, you've heard it from them. This conversation will continue as they progress. My name is Nwaboze Njoko. Thank you for investing your time with us this morning. Have a great day.